My hands trembled as clumsy applause faded into the stale hotel conference air. It wasn't for me, not really, not for the pitch I just delivered under two bright LEDs and the sharp gaze of three bored investors leaning back in their chairs on the little riser. They wanted the next ready-made app, not a girl from Trastevere talking about draped silk, lines, and heritage reborn in fabric. My carefully prepared sketches, pinned to foam board and propped on clunky easels, had felt luminous in my apartment last night. Here on this low stage in a cheap Rome hotel, they looked like the homework of a child who had colored outside the lines. The moderator, a flush-faced man with teeth too white, mumbled, "Thanks, Stella, best of luck." One slow clap from the room, then chatter heels on the floor, the clatter of coffee cups. I stepped down. The next pitch, some smart watch for dog owners, was already queuing up. My sketchbook pressed hard against my chest, heart knocking behind my ribs. Outside, the February chill needled my face. I shoved past a huddle of the other contestants, their plastic lanyards flashing, my own badge swinging like a useless medal. My scarf was tucked tight, but I could still hear the laughter chasing me, lively Roman voices with that particular lilt reserved for those who aim too high. By the time I reached the street, my chest was burning with something older than humiliation. Anger coiled cold, it strung like street winter, and it was an old friend from home. Back in my parents' kitchen, yellow walls, garlic hanging over the sink, the same chorus would be waiting. Papa with his arms crossed and that tight mouth, fashion A, everyone wants to draw. You're clever, you could teach, do something sure, don't be foolish. My Zia rolling dough with too much force, Nostra Stella, world-famous tailor, the whole neighborhood echoing her barked laugh, but in the hotel I'd imagined something different. At least one investor glancing twice at my hand-stitched muslin coat, a murmur of real interest. Instead, I got polite nods and the quiet gentleman on the end, sighing, "It's a hard market. Do you have any sales or shop presence already?" My lips shaped no, the truth stripped bare. That evening, under my apartment's weak lamp and the city's amber haze outside my window, I made hot tea and spread my portfolio across the sofa. Careful pencil lines, the memory of my grandmother's hands teaching me to sew buttonholes, the scent of new linen she would press under stones to dry. It felt so far, the dream of foreign country beyond the Tiber. Anger came again, but I tried to let it dissolve. Instead, I held on to the memory of fabric against skin, the possibilities flickering when I ran my hands over raw cloth. Fashion in Rome wasn't a business for outsiders, and I was deeply, painfully outside. I tried everything over the next 2 years. I emailed boutiques, waited at open calls. I said yes to every unpaid internship. A boss at an atelier let me fetch coffee for 6 months, then shrugged when I asked to show him my coats. "You have something nice, yes, but this city is full of nice." At night, the apartment felt colder, shadows pulling from the corners like an old bruise. Sometimes, walking home past the dusklit Monumenti, I'd see shop windows full of crisp shirt fronts and pastel jackets. I would stop, let my own reflection drift apart between the mannequins. Some nights my anger was pure, a flame. How dare they act as if dreaming is a crime? I would sketch until dawn, designs like armor, shoulders proud and lines clean, a body refusing to cower. But serenity crept in too. Alone at my table, scissors sharp, I could slow each movement. I made muslin toiles to fit my own frame, working by the window, listening to my neighbor's television and the faint heels of a woman above. If the city would not open its salons to me, I'd dress myself for the life I imagined. I started sewing for friends. My cousin Mariangela, who bartended in San Lorenzo, wanted a suit to wear at nights. "Slim but powerful," she said, half laughing over cheap Lambrusco. When she wore it, strangers asked her where she bought it. "My cousin Stella," she said, proud and defiant, a little of my anger thawed. By then my mother had learned not to mention fashion in front of Papa. She would call at lunch, voice hurried. "Eat enough, any big news?" I would laugh, keep it light. "You know small steps," she sighed once. "You know he wants you safe, Cara. The shop on Via del Zoccolet, they seek a help for the register. Maybe send your curriculum." Silence on the line. Then, "Sorry." "Ti voglio bene," I replied, voice small but steady. "I'm trying, Mama, I am." I put myself everywhere, small markets, flea stalls, pop-ups in converted garages. Nights before events, I stitched until my fingers ached. I made linen pants that held the body firmly and coats with seams that curled like the shell of a snail. Some pieces sold, many did not. When the city baked in July and tourists flooded the piazzas, I carried my suitcase up and down bridges chasing any commission. My name meant star, but I lived in the shadows, until slowly I didn't. It was a British tourist, Sarah, her accent crisp as biscotti, who took a photo of the coat I had made Mariangela. She tagged me on Instagram, something I barely used. The light in the photo was golden and the coat hung off my cousin's frame like the memory of an old glamour. Bespoke in Trastevere, she wrote. 2 days later, a DM from a designer in London. Love your coat, do you take commissions? I almost dropped my phone. I made her 3 coats, shipping them to an address near Notting Hill. She posted, tagged, commented again. My follow account, once a joke, 5 friends and 1 old schoolmate ticked up. A stylist in Berlin asked for 2 suits. A boutique in Milan wanted samples. Each time I stumbled to answer, but the orders came. I started putting my name on the inside, Stella R, in clean white thread. Still, I worked alone in my narrow apartment, work table pressed against the radiator, knees jammed under its edge. I could afford better fabric now, wool in lake blue and creams pale as fog. My parents noticed when I visited the way my bag was heavier, my face less hollow. Papa asked, business is? His hand floated, uncertain. I nodded, awkward. Better, stable, he grunted, half approval, but the rhythm of his hands over the breakfast table softened. An Italian-style magazine, tiny yes but real, asked to interview me. I met the writer at a cafe, my stomach twisting with nerves. He wore a scarf the shade of pistachio gelato and took notes in a battered moleskin. He called me independent, modern Roman tailoring. It felt like a costume, but I wore it anyway. 3 years after my failed pitch, an assistant from Rome Fashion Week wrote, emerging designers, apply for a launch slot, showcase your story, heritage, modernity, reinvention. I stared at the screen, numb. The application asked for photos, sketches, press. I had them now, not many, but enough. My finger hovered send. The answer came in April, a line colder than espresso. Congratulations, you have been selected to open the Saturday show. Send details. I reread it 10 times, the words dissolving and reforming. That night I called my mother. She shrieked and Papa in the background asked, Cosa early? She shouted back, La Nostra Stella in Fashion Week. Something in me broke and I hugged the phone, weeping. Preparation was a storm, orders, fabric deliveries, models. For the first time I hired help, 2 seamstresses who worked in the back courtyard of a friend's pizzeria, swearing at needles and laughing at my nervous pacing. 5 days before my show, the magazine story came out, my name under soft studio lights, from Trastevere to the catwalk, Stella R, Rome's new tailoring hope. The photo was too glamorous, but when I passed an edicola and saw my own eyes staring out, I allowed myself to feel proud. But every triumph made me more calm, that was new. My anger was quieter now, less thunder, more steady current. On the morning of the show I woke, my mother left a message. Ti amo, whatever happens, you did it. Mariangela arrived in a wild suit, I'd made her, coffee in her hand. Let's make them choke on their doubts, eh? We both laughed, real free. Outside the venue, a converted marble warehouse near Porta Portis, there was a crowd blooming by midday, anemones of black sunglasses and thick scarves. I was backstage, half hidden, checking final measurements and smoothing every crease with haunted hands. The models were kind, mostly students, their frames light in the white glare. I kept smoothing, adjusting, mouthing encouragement, proud, shoulders back, let it sing. But the world out front, that was another battlefield. Papa said he would not come, he could not, he claimed, stomaco low stress, but I knew. Mama brought my sisters, the barber from our street, my aunts, and astonishingly 3 old neighbors who murmured Stella Piccola, as if pinching my cheek from decades past. Before the show, the press asked for a photo. I stood alone, a fright in black, sweating. Above the chatter, I heard a voice, my old Zia, incredulous. Chifa, look at her as if she's Sophia Loren now. Her laughter bit at me, until she added quietly, Bae, perhaps she is. I walked to the entrance, heart hammering. The seats were packed. Industry journalists lined 3 rows, someone gestured my time. The music rose, low and silken, the first model gliding out. My designs, coats and dresses in blues, golds, crimsons, Roma's colors reclaimed. Shoulders swept bold, waists fitted sharply. Each movement was the nearness of serenity and rage, cloth rising against gravity. The crowd hushed. I hid near the curtain, barely breathing. But when the models walked to the end, pausing before paparazzi flashes and the industry elite, my family and neighbors sat in the 3rd row. My mother's eyes shined damp. My cousin pumped her fist, mouth wide, half in awe, half in laughter. My Zia, her face unreadable, but she pressed her lips together, eyes shining like coins. When the finale played and my own trembling legs carried me out a half step, applause crashed over me. Rooted amid the light, I could see their faces: pride, shock, relief, a wall of emotion I couldn't name. The investors from years ago weren't there, but my old teacher, the cafe regulars, every voice that had called me a fool. They saw it in the fabric, the lights, and the cameras trained on the woman who was once only La Figlia Pazza della Sata, the crazy tailor's daughter. Reporters came, photographers snapped, shouted my name. I blinked. My mother squeezed my hand so tightly, as if to anchor me to the earth itself. The editor of a luxury magazine brushed past my family and said, in perfect, rehearsed English, "We would love to feature your next collection." I nodded, my voice a whisper, "Of course." Copper-tinged spotlights turned every bead of sweat on my brow into a kind of halo. Outside, when the crowd had thinned, my father stood waiting, his coat wrinkled and his mouth uncertain. I approached, breath caught. For a moment, the distance of years, anger and missed dinners and the weight of mockery hung between us. Then he reached awkwardly and patted my shoulder with shaking fingers. He cleared his throat. "E grave verament bello Stella." He searched for more and finally, "Your grandmother would have been proud." I nearly fell into him, the city swirling behind us, lights glittering off the Tiber. Neighbors clapped my back, La Stella di Trastevere davvero, and aunts jostled to take photos. My Zia, who once had rolled dough with a sneer at my dreams, stopped before me. She looked at my skirt hem, ran her thumb over my stitching and nodded just once sharp. "You did not give up, say testada brava." Then she hugged me tight and sure, the past dissolving in the present. I was dizzy with it, acceptance earned, not gifted. My old anger was a companion now, but serenity lingered deeper. I saw myself in every coat, every seam, every laugh echoing along the cobblestones. The city that scorned my dreams now wore my ambition on its sleeve. That night, returning to my narrow street, stars blinked faint in the Roman sky. The windows above my mother's kitchen glowed, shapes moving busy within. The past was not erased. It sat at my table, ate my food, and nodded as if to say, "Now we understand." I slipped inside, the hum of the crowd echoing in my ears, my family's laughter tumbling around me, and behind all of it, serene, unbreakable, a belief in myself so solid, no stage could ever shake it again.